Well, hello everyone. Uh, Congratulations. In a few hours, you will receive your diplomas. You will graduate. So, just wanted to congratulate everyone. And it is a good time to make a reflection of what you have learned in these months here. Beyond marketing, finance, operations, you have learned something that can be extremely valuable for your lives and your careers. If you look at these slides, you see that online education is growing. At the same time, traditional education is losing students. The quality of online education today is equivalent to the quality of traditional education. The satisfaction of the students is equivalent to traditional education, with a lot of benefits on the side of online education in terms of scheduling, flexibility, possibility to work in your house, you can keep your working, and many other benefits. And if you want to understand why online education is so powerful, uh, remember the activities that you did in these classes. Most of the activities were related to discussions in which you had each one of you have time to do your own research, reflect, incorporate your own experience, and each one of you came back to the forum and each one of you contributed with knowledge, and during the classes, during the forums, you created knowledge as a community. And the same happened with the teamwork, same activity, so each one of you had your own analysis, research, incorporate your own experience, and then you came back and with the rest of the members of the team incorporated your knowledge. But you are using here practically all the theories about learning, advanced learning, knowledge construction. For example, Bandura, he talks about social learning, that you see here in the green ring, that basically through the discussions with your peers, you incorporate creativity, critical thinking, problem solving. You have scaffolding, you see at the right. Scaffolding was developed by Vygotsky, that he says that when you work in a social environment, you learn from others. Others model your learning process. Others can be the faculty, or can be the peers. You see at the center constructivism developed by Brunner, that says that knowledge construction is something that builds on your previous knowledge or experiences or whatever. So you see that you're using the most advanced learning technology, and this is something that you have incorporated in your lives, and you can apply in your future professional activities. However, there is something that we are not so much aware, and try to reflect here in this slide. This a lot of research showing the positive social impact of online education. And I would like that studied in this slide and all the rest of the slides, that you keep in mind that you have these three rings at the top left of the slide. So what we are trying is to show how this knowledge construction that we have just reflected on produces a positive social impact. Look at the slide. In Africa, vulnerable sectors get into a cultural and social transformation, economic development, education, thanks to online education. In Asia, it creates a lot of forums in which people collaborate, motivate each other, exchange knowledge. In India, online education has grown tremendously and also has produced a much higher quality of education. In Latin America, has produced social inclusion in terms of more affordable education, and also accessing to locations in which traditional education cannot access. Okay, so let's get into the reflection of what is the social reality today, what's going on today. This slide summarizes what most of the business schools have taught for the last decades. that is the business organizations must create economic value, must maximize shareholder value. And whether it is right or wrong, we are going to reflect in a couple of minutes. But I would like to reflect on this phenomenon of value creation and what is the social impact. In essence, the concept of value creation is that each one of us, individuals or institutions or business firms or governments, whatever, must create economic value. What does it mean? Well, in essence, that all of us must manage resources, as you see here. So you have all of us must manage resources, and with which those resources you need to produce something that our stakeholders will appreciate, that is product, service, or whatever. And if we do it well, okay, we develop some degree of market power, some social acceptance, if you want. And also we have to innovate. I mean, we don't innovate, we cannot grow. However, what is interesting is that what is the metrics that we use, this EVA. EVA is called economic value added, that in essence is how is our profitability compared to the profitability of the rest of the organizations. Let's say that we work in a company that has a profitability of 10%, and everybody else, all the rest of the companies in similar activities produce a profitability of 15%. So if you produce 10% and the rest of the companies produce 15%, you are in trouble, because nobody will want to invest in you. And the reality is that it means in your case you will have a minus 5% EVA, because you have 10 versus 15 that everyone else. However, what is interesting is that practically by this definition of how do you define the EVA, you realize that 50%, roughly 50% of the organizations, we have a negative EVA, and the other 50% of organizations we have a positive EVA, which produces a big divide, because the companies that have a negative EVA, they are in trouble. They will have difficulties getting investments, and eventually in the long run they should become these companies should disappear. This produces a tremendous pressure throughout the organization. Practically everyone in the organization must produce more results than the competition. It's very Darwinistic. If you don't do it, you disappear. And this pressure goes all over the organization. Competitive strategies, innovation strategies, resources strategies, overall strategies. Everything that you do in human resources management, operations management, organization, practically everything that you do in the organizations is connected to this need to maximize economic value. You can probably feel the pressure if you work in a company that if you don't do it, you risk your job, right? Okay, what are the social impact of this pressure to maximize economic value? There are some things that are positive, as you see in this slide. For example, competition has a good side. A race to do better, efficiency, productivity, quality, better prices, choice and products. So there is a long list of benefits of this competition to do better. So in terms of innovation, you have better knowledge, technology, health, quality of life, etc. So definitely the world today is substantially better than the world in terms of all these factors, quality of life, etc. Resources, you need to develop special resources, knowledge, technology. So this competition has a lot of benefits, but also has a lot of negative sides. For example, market power. Companies that become more successful, they at the same time build market power. And this market power means that these companies have the strength sometimes to eliminate other companies. There's a transfer of wealth, so companies that have better resources can charge higher prices, can produce economic inequalities, some social injustice. So it has a negative aspects. In terms of innovation, innovation can become predatory. For example, this global financial speculation. Today, the global funds are 10 times larger than the global GDP. Their potential to produce speculation is huge. Everything that is related to resources, the environment, so the problems of the environment that we know very well, that in 50 years, 100 years, we are going to run out of many basic raw materials, abuses of human resources. So there is a dark side of this economic value maximization, this Darwinism that we talk about. Okay, at this point I would like to resume our discussion about knowledge construction that we started when we started to talk about online education. So what you see in this slide is the three mainstream knowledge construction system: empiricism, idealism, and realism. And I would like to reflect on the three so we can kind of bridge the debate about online education and about this reality of economic value maximization or economic value construction, and what the social implications of this economic value creation that is so powerful in today's world. You see that all the theory of the shareholder value that provides all the foundation for the economic value maximization, conceptual foundation, but because the reality has nothing to do with any theory, it's a reality. I mean, Darwinism exists in the animal kingdom, it existed in the humanity before people could even talk. I mean, this is part of nature, if you want. So the Darwinism, but all the shareholder value is a theory that is a byproduct, if you want, of the classical and neoclassical economics, the free markets. In fact, the EVA, the model that I showed you a couple of slides ago, is absolutely a natural outcome of the supply and demand. So practically you can convert from one to the other very easily. And this supply and demand free markets economy is something that comes from utilitarianism. So the utility curves are the raw material to produce the demand curve that impacts on the supply curve, and so on. So if you look at all the theories of empiricism, especially British empiricism, Adam Smith, Jeremy Bentham, David Hume, whatever, they provided all the foundation to this shareholder value. However, there are other ways to create knowledge, and they have a different social views, if you want. Idealism, especially continental Europe idealism, Kant, that has a lot of predecessors, if you want, St. Augustine, Plato in all Greece, and all the idealism has a lot of impact in modernity. So many notions that we use every day, like the human rights, justice, rule of law, etc., they existed for many centuries, no? But they have a special foundation in idealism. So the role of the state, what we call the left, if you want, all the norms. So you have to behave such and such way in order to be aligned with these notions of idealism. But there is a third model that is called realism. The origin is in Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas, and in the modernity there are a lot of thinkers that follow realism. And you can see that it's interesting when you look at the third column is that you see the word social all the time. It produces social ethics, produces social change, social justice, social entrepreneurship, social work, and even in corporate social responsibility, all the notions are clearly oriented. First, there are way more initiatives connected to social aspects and corporate social responsibility, much more than idealism and empiricism by far. But there is a lot of things that we can reflect. Let's wait for a couple of slides, but remember that we are talking about online education. I would like that you can connect these three epistemologies, these three ways to build knowledge, to construct knowledge. You can connect with to have like a bridge, if you want. So connect the way you construct knowledge with the social impact. This is the purpose of this slide. I did some research on this, on which one of the three systems, empiricism, idealism, or realism, produces better social outcomes. And it's very interesting because you can see that, well, and social outcomes in terms of GDP per capita, human development, economic freedom, corruption, well, the opposite of corruption, clearly, and knowledge, which is the one, which of the three epistemologies produces better results. And you see that clearly realism is the one that wins practically in all the factors that we are considering. So the R squared, that is the correlation, is relatively weak for empiricism, much stronger for idealism, and much stronger for realism. So you see that you can predict, this is what correlations means basically, that you can predict that realist values is a better predictor of better social outcomes in the society. You have the same for human development, the same for economic freedom, the same for corruption, the same for no. So in every respect, you see that realist values produce better social outcomes. So once again, here you bridged what we are talking about, that is how you construct knowledge, very much connected with online education, with the social outcomes. So this is another source of bridging these two ways, two worlds, if you want, and also critical thinking, because clearly this helps you to be critical of empiricism, idealism, and realism, and try to understand why they produce a better social results. Okay, so now that we have this critical thinking, and we realize that realism correlates better with all these positive social outcomes, and that realism eventually is connected to online education, let's try to understand more what is this realism. Let me give you an example so you can better catch the idea in a fast way. Let's imagine that we are in a classroom, and I am standing in front of all the different people with an apple, and I show an apple to everyone, and I have 100 people in front of me, and I ask each one of them, okay, what do you see? Okay, eventually each one of the person in the audience will have is wired in a different way. So some people will look more like the apple as economists, like will see more a product subject to supply and demand. A philosopher will see more like the being with accident, substance, blah blah blah. The someone that is hungry will see an apple good, delightful to eat. A poet will see life and colors, and artists will see. So each one will see something different. Realism, what basically does is try to find ways to build knowledge altogether, same as we did in the online classes. Empiricism has a difficulty on this, because empiricism will conclude that we have 100 different opinions, and it is not easy to find a scientific way to relate or build knowledge out of 100 different opinions. Idealism even worse, because idealism basically will give you a definition. This is what an ideal apple is, and so it's not so easy to understand why people has so many different opinions. However, realism is supported by phenomenology, that is a philosophy of the 20th century, relies on many other factors. For example, reflection gives time so the different people listen to each other. Meditation, intuition, metaphors. Let me give you a couple of examples that we use in the real world. For example, Honda, the car manufacturer, when they have to develop a new car, they first propose a metaphor. Like when they developed the Honda Civic, they proposed the theory of the evolution of man, and each one of the different areas of the organization contributed with their insights. And so you can put on the same table economists and people from finance and engineers and designers and people from the marketing people, and they can understand the metaphor. So it's a way to build organizational knowledge out of people that have different wiring, different way to perceive the reality. in international business, we do it all the time. For example, when we discuss cross-cultural differences, we use metaphors. For example, American culture, the metaphor is American football. It's energetic. You have these huddles in which people exchange ideas and create plans and recreates the plans and recreates the plans. It's a society that is always building, recreating itself, very egalitarian. Germany has the metaphor of the symphony orchestra that is completely different. You have a conductor and you have a group of musicians, each one very good, but they have to follow the conductor in a very formal way. The society in Germany, they have education, for example. You have to follow one standard. You cannot change your system of education. So they very very oriented to norms, to times, punctuality, etc. China is another metaphor. The family altar, the traditions, the relationships, the family, etc. So through a metaphor, the 100 people in this audience, they can understand each other and they can build knowledge all together. So you see that realism is basically proposes ways so everyone can understand each other, that you can enrich knowledge through diversity. So diversity is not something that creates a problem. Diversity is a good way to enrich the quality of your knowledge, and especially to develop all these notions that you see here: empathy, emotions, affections. So you start looking at the person that is sitting beside you and valuing that person. As a matter of fact, you see that most of the thinkers of the 20th century that followed this realism of phenomenology, like Husserl, von Hildebrand, Stein, they talk of notions about the heart, empathy, relational dimensions, the human face, human integration, personal expression, dialogue. So practically very, very human. And at the end of the day, the human side is what matters the most, right? And what is interesting is to see what are the impact of this way to build knowledge that you automatically relate to online classes. So practically everything that we talked about, when you put an apple and you have 100 opinions, is exactly what happens in the online education, that each one of the members of the class collaborates, contributes knowledge, and you try to create knowledge altogether, finding ways to construct knowledge altogether. So you are getting a training that is important for your lives. But what are the effects? The effects are extremely interesting. First is the first line is the role of perceptions. Reflection is what I've just explained. That if you want is what I put, the road to discernment. So it helps you to have many views and discern of, okay, what is finally the conclusion, the knowledge that we are creating all together. And this helps to integrate yourself, integrate you internally, so you have time to look at yourself and reflect who you are, and you listen to others and they look at you, and this helps you to build your identity, your value. So in this audience of 100 people, if everyone is isolated, is one thing, but when everyone becomes part of a community, you realize what you are contributing to others. You are just not one else, as in the empiricist world, that everyone is isolated. No, you are part of a community and you are a valuable component of the community. So in the online classroom, in which each one of the members of the discussion is collaborating, contributing knowledge, each one is valuable, and you listen to each one and you accept the diversity as an asset. This helps to produce interpersonal integration, dialogue, empathy, affections. This is practically the raw material of phenomenology that we discussed in the previous slide. And this builds values, and this builds a humanism. You value yourself, you value others, you develop love, compassion, you value the world, value your work, value music, value art, value a beautiful mountain, ocean, whatever. So this capacity to develop perception, reflection, meditation helps to develop values, to live life in a much more positive way. And this is something that is essential in all this process that we are discussing, all the values of realism. and this helps you to transform yourself, to heal yourself, recreate yourself, heal, live in the present, etc. Develop humility, dignity, happiness. This helps you to be free, so you live life in a much more positive way. Consequently, if you are having a bad time for whatever reason, okay, you look at the big picture if you want. It helps to develop wisdom. You know that I'm sorry, I forgot, to transform the world, to work for the community, because now you belong to the community. It helps to develop wisdom. You know, wisdom, the difference between wisdom and just knowledge is a sense that that you have experience this knowledge, and you see the results and you learn from that. And finally, and this is the final outcome of all this, that is to develop social leadership. So now that you have wisdom, that you value the important things in life, that you have this emotional awareness, that you can communicate well, you can learn, you have humility, adaptability. Okay, so this is all the foundations, the pillars of a leader. So why the word social leadership and not just leadership? Well, because the social side is in the sense that you have some sensibility to the community. It's not that you are just a leader for yourself. You're a leader for everyone, because the essence of all of this is your integration to the community. What you see in the online classes, that you work as a team, and what you see in this metaphor that I gave you of the apple and the 100 people in the audience. So you created a community, and this is so it helps you to understand, to produce this bridge between online education and the social side. This is the last slide, I guess, that is just to see that the same happens organizationally. So the previous slide is how you individually create knowledge, etc. So, okay, this is how the organization does it. And the first thing is there are many ways to produce this realism, this try to connect with the reality and produce knowledge that that is the final outcome of the organizational reflection, and a reflection that is much better, much richer if the stakeholders collaborate. And this is something that most modern management recognizes and accepts. That's why realism is very much, it comes from philosophy, but also comes from the reality. There are many models that are identical to what realism proposes. Organizational leadership, learning organization. This is the recognition that the organizations create knowledge, create this awareness, these reflections, knowledge management. The example that I gave you about Honda, or about Honda uses metaphors, is comes from the discipline of knowledge management, intellectual capital, balance scorecard. All these models emphasize the role of the community, not only the employees, but also the rest of stakeholders in the process of creation, knowledge creation, and reflection. Organizational internal integration and with the community. You see that all the social responsibility models, like the stakeholder theory, that all the stakeholders are important, and the organization must focus on all of them when they build their strategies. Corporate citizenship, another social responsibility model, that a company succeeds when it's part of the community, and the stakeholders look at the company as another citizen. Corporate social performance, that the model that you try to measure the success of a company based not only on the financial side, but also on the human side, on the social responsibility, social performance side. And this helps to develop values throughout the organization. And you see the values are the core of the vision, mission, and everything that is the beginning of one organization. Organizational transformation, practically all the modern strategic management is built on these parameters. Freedom, and this is very important. What happens if one organization wants to be a social leader, if you want, but the customers don't collaborate? So when the customers go to the supermarket, they buy a product that comes from companies that use sweatshops, or that don't respect the environment, whatever, but are cheaper. So the customers will buy the cheaper product and will not help the companies that pay a higher price, a higher cost, but they don't affect the environment or don't abuse of the employees, whatever. So it is important that they are all on the same page. That okay, and this is a challenge for the organization, and this is something that in order to have the freedom to do what the organization wants, need to find ways to persuade the customers to be part of the team, to collaborate, to build a better world. So this helps to transform the world, and this helps at the end of the world, at the end of the day, to develop social leadership. Leadership focus on the best of corporate social responsibility. It goes beyond responsibility. So it's not just social responsibility. There's a contrast between social leadership and social responsibility. Social leadership is something that each one of us, wherever we are in the organization, whatever we do, we are a lawyer, we're a dentist, we are whatever, the janitor, anyway, anywhere in the organization, whatever we do, we exercise our social leadership. We are in the government, we are in whatever activity we do. Is we look at the community as a whole, and we belong to a community, etc. So consequently, it's not responsibility. It goes beyond responsibility. It's leadership. I would like to have a brief case, just to you can reflect on your own. The world is complex, and as I show you, this economic value added that produces this social Darwinism, but you have much closer cases. Look at what is going on in the Rusty Belt in the U.S. First, a lot of people are losing their jobs, or they are switching from manufacturing to service jobs, which you see that today, today there is only 8% of jobs are related to manufacturing, and is falling practically steadily for the last decades. But the reality is that these jobs, the service jobs, has like almost 20% lower salary and benefits compared to manufacturing jobs. So this is negative for many employees, that many people that work in the Rusty Belt. Also, the phenomenon of globalization, global sourcing. This slide shows that it's not the most important thing. That the people that lose their job because of trade is 13%. People that lose their job because of automation is 87%. And as a whole, the country has produced jobs steadily. However, so eventually more jobs were created thanks to international trade that lost. However, there are still some people that lost their jobs. Finally, there's this phenomenon of robotics. This a work from McKinsey that is absolutely shocking, because it shows that around McKinsey and others, that probably in 10 years 50% of people will lose their jobs, and because of automation and because of robotics. And in every area of business, people that are more involved in routine jobs will eventually lose their jobs. This is what you see here. So non-routine jobs will grow, but routine jobs will not grow, so their share will fall. So so what is the alternative for the people in the Rust Belt or everywhere? Probably not in the Rust Belt. I mean, happens in Britain, in Germany, France, everywhere. So this discussion is global. So what is the alternative? Okay, people, a lot of people today distrust of empiricism or free markets. They kind of symbolize in the Gordon Geckos, people that the abuse of the systems, or they distrust on idealism, the role of the state. They don't trust on the government agents, Frank Underwood, if you want. So so the alternative is populism. So what today it seems to be like a way out of this reality for many people over the world. Well, probably the alternative is realism, is what we have been discussing. So community knowledge construction, what does it mean in the reality? Okay, that if a lot of people are losing their job in the Rust Belt, eventually you can create databases of people that lose their jobs, so can other so the society can become aware of this difficulty and try to find jobs for these people, headhunters or companies that try to source labor from people that are losing their jobs, and eventually consumers can compensate companies that are hiring people that are losing their jobs because of this phenomena. Eventually the government can reduce taxes for companies that hire these people, or universities can eventually educate people that are losing their jobs so they can move to another sections of the economy. So you see that all this knowledge construction is interpersonal integration, values, transformation. So you have a lot of mechanisms in order to show a solution or present a solution to people that are losing their jobs. But they all require social leadership. So you can create a lot of mechanisms, but without social leadership, nothing works. For example, you have global funds that they don't speculate or they don't affect the environment. But what is their market share? It's practically nothing. So the people don't invest on these global funds. So if the community, the consumers, the shareholders, the citizens with their votes, government, so people don't enact their social leadership, so all the solutions that you can propose become useless, and then people start thinking about populism. But definitely a better solution is what we have been exercising in these classes, in these online classes. So community knowledge constructions, interpersonal integration, values, transformation, wisdom, social leadership. Thank you very much.